Oh, good evening. A bit of a cock up there. I don't know whether I've done 2 live streams or something like I did before. I might have to just check what power I'm using. Not too bad. So I think I might have sent you all off on a wild goose chase, which is very possible. I think that's what's happened. I have no idea what I did there. I think I set 2 live streams going again. I'm just getting more and more genius at this, me. Let's be honest. Does it sound okay? That's good. So, yeah, completely ruined it as usual. But never mind. At least we're in May now. We've got rid of that April, and that's got to be a good sign. So my apologies if I've sent you all over the shop. Holy cow! Oh, yeah, I had to delete another live stream that you were watching, but I were over here. So I do apologise. I'm getting shit at this. I'm getting shitter each week. I think it's fair to say. Evening, everybody. Garrett, Mew, A, and holy cow. Good evening to you. Well, somebody sent me a very interesting YouTube channel after last week's live stream. So I've been absorbing his videos all week, and I have to say, this guy's either an absolute genius or a complete nutjob like the rest of us. So I've been absorbing him, to be honest. I'll give it another week, and then we'll discuss some stuff that he's pushing out there. But I just want to look at a few more first. So let's have a look. I thought I'd kick off with just a bit of history, which is interesting. And then here we go. So this was written in April the 20th, 2018 by Medieval Digger. And its title is The End of the Druids, Rome's Destruction in England, Scotland and Ireland. Even though, of course, England and Scotland didn't exist in those days. But we pretend we don't hear that. It's a good tale. It says, what do we know of the mystical Druids, so steeped in confusing and foggy history? More than you might think. Druids were often the philosophers, scientists, lore masters, teachers, judges and counsellors to the kings and leaders of the British Islands or British Isles, and had been for nearly a millennia. Then Nero began his campaign to destroy the Christians of Britain, and the Druids, whose motto, the truth against the world, now joined the battle against the great Roman war machine. Because, and I have mentioned this before, but what as Christianity was going on in these islands for a lot longer than people think, and it certainly wasn't formed by Rome. It were hijacked by Rome and turned into something else. Before Rome's attack on the islands, it had been a well-established seat of learning for many generations, taught by the Druids. By 38 AD, Julius Caesar tells us in his book Gaelic Wars that there were at least 40 universities in England. They're using that term England. It's not England, but it's the British Isles. So 40 universities at least. And he mentioned that they were reputed to have had an enrollment of 60,000 pupils from around the world. Yeah? So Caesar is telling you this in 38 AD about the British Isles, that it had at least 40 universities and it had enrollment of 60,000 pupils from all around the world. Okay, so that's what the British Isles were before Rome came in and blew it apart. There is a potential reason why they did that from my studies, and that was that once the original Druids had sent their initiate into Palestine to preach the law, that obviously got the priesthood excited back over there, and then you get this move against the Druids by the Romans. But what actually happened from my studies, and this sets off well, it's very difficult to learn anything about the Druids. I've read copious books, but they're regurgitating the same. However, you do get pearls every now and again. So, you know, it were a major place, and it basically educated the elites of the world. So the system that was running the world back then was pretty much centered in the British Isles, but specifically it would appear Ireland, the Emerald Act. Yeah, so the capital of it was Ireland, and the British Isles followed suit with the Druids on Anglesey. But the Druids were all over the shop. But then it became the Druidists, and you know, we speak of the Druids today, and mainly what you're speaking of, reading, is nonsense that had been reformed about the Druids by the priesthood in order to do what they did with the entire Bible, which was to turn it to their advantage by nicking all documents they had in their hands at that time, and turning it into their own chronological system that made them look like they were amazing and fantastic. And of course, no, they're not. But never mind that. So 60,000 pupils from around the world, that's a lot of people, you know, and elite people. That. So English legend tells us that Pontius Pilate attended these Druidic universities, as well as many of Rome's greatest historical generals. J.O. Kinnaman, D.D., in his work on archaeology, said that Pilate was not a Roman by nationality, but by citizenship. He was born a Spaniard. Then he went to Britain to study in the universities under the administration of the Druids. It was Pilate's ambition to become a Roman lawyer and the future governor of Palestine. No wonder Pilate washed his hands over the judging of his teacher's initiate. You know what I'm saying? He was not going to do it, is he? He's just not going to take any part of it, and they basically handed it over to a lesser guy. And let him be judged by the priesthood of the day. So that's, you know, it works in sync with that as well. As I said, they've turned what was a guy that caused havoc into a fantasy, a Disneyland character, and everybody sucked it up for centuries. But where are we there? Later, after the invasion of the Romans, one Roman general by the name of Gaius Suetonius Paulinus destroyed the Druids' largest and most precious centres of learning and its library at Anglesey in AD 60. Once the Druid centres of learning were ruined, then came the beginning of one of the most famous of all historical spins, with so many records and histories lost in the destruction of these schools. Rome could make any claim, put forth any statement of fact, and they did, but sadly they're all it's still in play today. So Rome laid claim to the Druidic undertakings of road building. Yeah, there were roads all over this place. Rome actually, when they did take over this place, just went over a lot of the existing roads, which are some of the major ley lines we've got running around the country. That they established civilizations and cities, which they didn't. It was the empire or the system that was being run by the Druids. That they created centres of study. Well, no, they didn't. What Rome did was create legions, you know. They claim to then fostering the Christianizing of England. Well, that's absolute garbage. what we class as Christianity was a way older system, way before the times that people are told that it began. It was Rome's began under Constantine, but the actual idea and the system had been in existence for a long time. What Rome were actually doing were taking over that system to itself. And then, you know, there's a lot of information that suggests that the priesthood had took over Rome, even as it before its destruction, but definitely so when it sort of started to be destroyed. Now, and it says, and although in the fact the Romans were the destroyers of all that they were claiming to have set off, because of course they were taking over what the Druids have been doing for millennia, remember. Finally, one last historic push, the end of the Druids came in the 4th century. Rome accused them of horrendous acts of violence and murder at Stonehenge in England, Scotland and Ireland. Well, it's interesting that, because when I was studying the First World War, one thing that was clear is every single soldier that left these islands to go to the death would march past Stonehenge. So somebody's been using it for sacrificial, that's a fact. And a bit after the days of the Druids. Where are we now? The remnants of the Druids were attacked in the last stronghold, Saint Fiac. Records the work of St. Patrick in Britain. St. Germanus, with a group of priests that included St. Patrick, travelled through Britain, convincing people to turn to God, or of course, the Roman God, throwing out the false priests of Pelagius, who were known as snakes. The same would hold true in Ireland. Their symbol, the serpent, was the symbol of the tribe of Dan. But of course, we're looking at the serpent in its wisdom context. That's what they represented, the Druid elite, of course, and everybody else recognised that if they were educating some 60,000 elite families' children from across the world. So it was recognised that they had the wisdom, and they used the serpent. And the priests of Pelagius were known as snakes. Well, so when you get into the St. Patrick removing the snake, everybody thinks it's adders. And I've even heard some people say that, one anthropologist, that adders didn't exist in Ireland. Well, of course they do. Adders exist in all of the British Isles, along with the grass snake, and they always have. So a lot of people have got a lot of misrepresentations when they're pushing through this stuff and presenting it as fact. So when he's talking about removing the snakes, he's talking about removing the priests of Pelagius, the Druids. It says the symbol of the serpent was the symbol of the tribe of Dan also. They were murdered and destroyed by St. Patrick, who is remembered today as having driven the snakes out of Ireland. So a bit of a murdering prick, weren't he, the old chap? From that point forward, most of Britain was firmly under the control of Romans, as well as their new fractured history. So that's interesting, but then it depends at what point the Dis had took it over, the Druids, as to whether Rome were just nicking it like they did, or they were fighting against this takeover of the Druids sect. Because the only thing that still I can't explain is why the Queen of the Brigantes, Queen Cormandua, would side with the Romans, when obviously, being matriarchal, etc., she would have definitely been on the side of the Druids. So there's still a reason why she would do that I've yet to learn. I mean, I've studied ideas and blah, blah, but at the core of it, you never actually get to the reason why she, a queen of one of the biggest tribes in British Isles at its time, would side with the Romans. Very interesting. And so at what point did the Druids get took over by the Dis? That's definitely something that would be beneficial if that ever became answered. So I just thought I'd kick you off with that. I don't know whether that interested you or not. Price of engine oil, is it? It's ridiculous, isn't it, that they can just get away with this? I think BP have announced 9 billion profits. I mean, it's like the elite now overriding everything, and everybody's now at the capacity of slavery in their own mind, in that they don't believe they can do anything. They believe they've no power, that they just have to suck on this shit. You know, because you're not be long before they start, or NATO, you know, they're already here under COVID. They were all over Aylesbury, I think. Paras were reporting had all been called back and sent to, I think it was, I can't remember exactly where it might have been Aylesbury, where it was full of German NATO commanders during the war. So they're here, they've based themselves here. You know, next phase will be, they're helping. Look how they're helping you, you know. Food back. No. This is the stepping stone to martial law. This is how it works. This is how it's done. It's all done by them pretending to help you, you know. Like the government have helped you, didn't they? They offered you a medical intervention. They offered it you because they wanted to help. They're that lovely. But really what's happened is not help, is it? They've helped themselves and their best mates. Fund them. 20 quid. Oh my God. That's a bit much, isn't it? Yeah, we do have a mod man, yeah. I'm very good at it as well. Have you studied Breton Law? I can honestly say I don't think I've ever heard of that. Is it a body of law, or is it that easy a guy? Can you just expand on that? Because I've never actually come across that before, as I know. Yes. Good evening, Kerry, and good evening to you all. So I thought we'd continue with what we were looking into last week, because I think it went down quite well. And this again, just to remind, is a guy I communicated with in 2018 through 2018. He was in full battle mode, obviously, you know, something had happened bad and he were out on his back foot, but throwing it back at him like you wouldn't believe. You know, I know where he were at with that, because that tends to be what happens when you sort of break the chains and they make it clear they're not happy. So you've really on your back foot and you have to keep fighting. So that's what happened with me after I left the mystery school. So I could recognise him in that mode in 2018. And I'd been putting out stuff about hip hop and its occult connections, and I think he found it. Anyway, we ended up communicating and we were sharing all sorts of information. And then nothing, all this stuff gone, and I've not seen or heard of anything of him since 2019, I think, early doors. So I do hope he's all right. But his stuff, you know, I mean, this guy was involved in the hip hop scene, the hip hop. So he knows all the little shenanigans that are going on. He knows the back end stories as well as the front end blags. You think Cash is going to? Do you think? Well, you've got to remember, take into consideration, Ray, that they tested this a few years ago with 20 trillion worth of digitized assets. So they tried to swap it from the LIBOR system to the SOFR, which is this digital system, the SOFR, and it failed. It failed, absolute miserable. However, since then they've had the bulk script, and that has forced a lot more people to use an electronic. People who now can't be asked to get out their bloody seat because they're getting Deliveroo. You know, so much extra that they didn't have when they did that simulation that they've now achieved. But at the time, they said they'd put it off till 2023. Not 100% sure at what point, whether it's which quarter it's going to be in that. But just keep that in mind. There is a video out about it. I can't remember her name. Oh, bugger. She's known. If I can think of it, I'll pass it on. But just keep that in mind, that they have actually tried to shift it from the LIBOR to the SOFR, and a catastrophic failure. But then that would be for the bug. So yeah, 2023 is when it's set for them to have another bash, which has to be achieved. They have to be able to do that before they can switch it. So that's one to keep your eyes on. I forgot what it's all called, to be honest. But yeah, keep that in mind. Breton. Okay, what's Breton? What are you trying to say then? Are you talking about Brian Hoare that sat outside Parliament for all those years? And I knew Brian, and I started to help him before they wished him off and murdered him in a German hospital. I started to help him. We were going through the common law aspect of things in order for him to enforce his right to remain on there, because they really didn't like him. They were, so I got to know him towards the end, but unfortunately, he'd fallen foul of somebody that set out an Australian woman who pretty much it just made it so dependent. It made him so dependent on her, and then he ended up in a German hospital, and the guy was no more. So I don't know whether you're talking about Brian Hoare. Yeah, Scandinavia. That's why you didn't get lockdowns, isn't it? Because most of what they were trying to achieve in the rest of the world, the Scandinavian countries had already took it on, hadn't they? They were already doing electronic. They were already ready to put the microchips and all sorts of garbage in. So they didn't have many lockdowns and not very many deaths either, which is worth noting as well. Right, we'll get to the next installment from my good mate back then. So this is what he has to say about the Order of Jokers. Okay. He says the Royal Order of Jesters is a Masonic division of the Shriners and headed up by the Fürstenberg family of Germany and the Colonna family of Rome. The Shriners are also known as the ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine, which I have a report on, and I've passed that to many. The Shriners are also known as a European Masonic order. It is Arabic in relation to the Moorish invasion of Europe. The Fürstenberg family have a jester on their coat of arms and have a broad range of influence in politics, banking, and corporations. Court jesters were used by royalty in medieval times, and this still continues today. The headquarters of the Royal Order of Jesters is in Hawaii, where Barack Obama is from. Barack Obama is a Masonic jester trained in arrogant mockery. Obama made jokes about using drones to kill the Jonas brothers. The US military uses drones to bomb what they claim are terrorists in the Middle East, and admit that they also kill civilians during these attacks. Jesters specialize in mocking the truth and making jokes to deflect away from serious issues. Some jesters are extremely malicious and specialize in terrorism, trickery, and threats. And this type can be seen in the entertainment industry, in such as Joker in Batman, Violent J and Shaggy 2, Dope of the Insane Clown Posse, are examples of sadistic jesters, and they have a large cult following known as juggalos, with a portion of them part of violent street gangs also called juggalos. Juggalo gang members are insane, blood-intoxicated terrorists known for carrying out violent attacks and murder. Jim Carrey is a high-level court jester in Hollywood and mocks people who expose the Illuminati. Okay. Jerry Seinfeld is a high-level member of the Order of Jesters. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is likely a female associate of the Jesters and also one of the highest-level witches in the United States. Prince Urbano Riaro Sforza, Berberine Colonna di Sciarra, is an Italian comedian, and he oversees the comedic aspect of the Order of Jesters. I wonder if Yonmon's in this. What's he called? The beloved. Oh shit! He did that Office, and then did that Golden Globes or whatever it were, where he did them things. Because he's definitely controlled, and he was like, it were ordained for him to start attacking Hollywood. I forgot his name. I can't remember his bloody name. Anyway, So I've always wondered if he's part of this group, because he does seem to be one of the most potent comics around. Jesters are the nature of joyful wickedness. They get joy from terrorizing, humiliating, and torturing people. The Order of Jesters is all about psychological warfare. The Colbert family were a lower French nobility, with Jean-Baptiste Colbert, a minister of finance in France. Stephen Colbert has been made the crowned jester in the United States. So Stephen Colbert has been made the crowned jester in the United States, and he is a major gatekeeper using comedy to distract from the serious issues and political corruption. Colbert is arrogant and evil. The news media even considers him to be a legitimate member of the news media. The French House of Colbert use a serpent on the coat of arms, and that is exactly the nature of Stephen Colbert. Colbert gets paid very well to consciously spread disinformation and lies backed up by a comedy to distract society away from criminals that are attempting a full takeover of society. Jesters also operate as an online cult that cyberstalk people, exposing criminals, and they use mockery to do it. Seth MacFarlane is a high-level jester who subtly mixes comedy with sadism and evil. Oh, this is a bit interesting. I'd forgot about this. Alex Jones was even initiated by the Royal Order of Jesters and did a show as the Joker. Alex Jones often acts like a fool, which is used to discredit people who speak out against corruption. An FBI report right off the FBI's website details John Trowbridge as a member of the New York Buffaloes chapter of the Royal Order of Jesters, and he was involved with transporting prostitutes to Kentucky Jester Lodge, and there were also admitted fellow jesters also involved, and there were also admitted fellow jesters. Secret societies like Freemasonry and the Order of Jesters are involved with sex slavery, paedophilia, and human sacrifice, and a multitude of depravity, which is part of the real initiations. They use initiations like this to incorporate others into corruption, and so they can blackmail members if they try to leave or expose these groups. Yeah, like we discussed before, that so the intent of the priesthood, how they operate, is if you are a person of interest, they'll find out what it is you like, whether that's common knowledge or it's your hidden secret like. Once they find that out, then they will supply it for you. I mean, of course, and the more depraved it is, the better it is for them, because they can give you anything that you need and anything's available from these people. And once they get you into that, then when the favours come back, where you're starting to do favours back for what they're doing for you, each time you do that favour corrupts you and further corrupts you until eventually you're at the same level of those. So you pretty much, you've been pulled in by your own, let's say, lack of control over your darker side, maybe. It says they use initiations like this to incorporate others into corruption, and so they can blackmail members if they try to leave or expose these groups. Yeah, because once they've got you, you've corrupted yourself, they've got as much on you now. They don't have to keep giving you these things unless it's part of the game that they do. The most common practice among these jesters is the consumption of adrenochrome and adrenaline-filled human blood, and then terrorizing people like sadistic clowns. It's called the Royal Order of Jesters because it is controlled by the royal families. Prince Henrik of Fürstenberg and Prince Alexander of Fürstenberg are the top managers of the Royal Order of Jesters, and they oversee the sadistic and terroristic aspect of the Order of the Jesters. So there you go, the Order of Jokers, which I thought definitely an interesting look at. Anyway, the next one, I couldn't find it just before, and then I started cocking up the live stream as usual. So I didn't manage to get the second one up, but it's interesting. Yeah, I can't find it. Well, I'll tell you what. While I can't find that one, Let's have a look at what he says about Emmanuel Macron, who's just run again, hasn't he? And they're saying it's a bit dodgy, but I don't know. I've not really looked into the politics of France for quite a long time. Now, this is called Rocca, Regiment of Roma. It says the Rocco and Roche families are a military bloodline of France, Switzerland, Italy, and the UK. These clans likely originate from the Patria Gentile clan of ancient Rome, which was involved in the military. The Rochefoucauld. No, I've said this one, haven't I? Or are we just coming across them in another one? Okay. The Latin word Petra means rock, as roche is a French word for rock, and rocca is an Italian word for rock. So that's the rock of the church, isn't it then? So yeah, it's got to be, hasn't it? And also refers to a fortress. These clans are evil, militant, and stubborn. In France, there are the ancient Rochefoucauld. I think I've done this. And the Rochefoucauld families, which are born about 1,000 years, which are both about 1,000 years old. Both families have been involved with the military and Catholic Church. So, is it the Catholic Church or is it the Roman Empire? Because they are distinct, and not a lot of people allow that distinction. Because it's pretty clear that the military, everything's military, and everything that's running the church now is military, which is the Roman Empire, which came from the east, Byzantium. I'm sure I've seen this. It's the House Rochechouart were involved with the Crusades, 100 Years' War, and the Napoleonic Wars. Yeah, we have done this. I think we have. Yeah, I think we did that in last week's, didn't we? Sorry. What's this one? This is interesting. The Templar House of Church Hill. It says the Spencer family is a high-level British nobility which manage politics and the media in the UK for the British Crown. Various members of this family have been Knights of the Order of the Garter, including John Churchill, the first Duke of Marlborough. They originate from the Despencer family and Hugh le Despencer, the first Baron of Despencer, who held the position of Justiciar of England, which is similar to the modern position of Prime Minister. The Despencer family held high-level positions in the English government. Winston Spencer Churchill was a well-known Prime Minister of the UK. Winston Churchill's grandfather was Leonard Jerome, an American financier and friend and business associate of the wealthy Vanderbilt family. Consuelo Vanderbilt was married to Charles Richard Spencer Churchill, the 9th Duke of Marlborough. Anderson Cooper is a two-time CIA intern and member of the Vanderbilt family. Anderson Cooper runs propaganda for CNN. Princess Diana of Wales was a Spencer, so Prince William is closely related to this family. Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer, is a high-level member of this family, along with his wicked son, Louis Frederick Spencer, the Viscount of Althorpe, and daughter, Kitty Spencer. Louis Spencer is a member of the Order of Bath and involved in bathing in human blood. Charles Spencer is involved with the mainstream media and worked for NBC. Randolph Churchill was a politician and journalist. The Spencer family are connected with the Freud and Murdoch families, which runs News Corp. The Freud Communications, which is a marketing and public relations firm. Matthew Freud was married to Charles Spencer's ex-wife and remarried Rupert Murdoch's daughter at the Spencer Blenheim Palace. Emma Freud is a dame of the British Empire and works in radio and television. Matthew Freud's ancestors are Sigmund Freud, the brainwasher and fraudulent psychoanalyst, as well as the propagandist Edward Bernays. Oh, yeah. James Spencer Churchill, the 12th Duke of Marlborough, is the head of the House of Spencer, along with his son George Spencer Churchill, the Marquis of Blandford. They own the very large Blenheim Palace. Lady Henrietta Spencer Churchill is married to Nathan Gelber, the CEO of Stamford Associates, which is an investment advisory company. The half-brothers of James Spencer Churchill is Edward Spencer Churchill, and he is a business associate of Prince Valerio Massimo. and they founded the aerospace company Actus Industries and SCM Capital Partners. Edward Spencer Churchill and Prince Valerio Massimo are extremely sadistic. The Knight of the British Empire, Rupert Soames, is the CEO of Serco and the grandson of Winston Churchill. Serco is a company that privatises governments and runs healthcare systems, prisons, military agencies, information services, and transportation for governments. You know, so all this G4S, all this stuff, this is who you're working for, chaps. Nicholas Soames is also a relative of Winston Churchill and was the Shadow Secretary of State for Defence. Well, they would, wouldn't they? Nicholas Soames is currently chairman of the private military group Aegis Defence Services. Aegis has set up criminal operations in Syria. There are towns all over the United Kingdom and its Commonwealth that are named Churchill. Charles Spencer's ex-wife Karen Spencer established Whole Child International, which is involved with orphanages around the world and has been financed by the Clinton Foundation. Ooh, that's a red flag then. The royal and noble families are known for their involvement in trafficking children. They use fake charities as fronts. Various members of the Spencer Churchill family have been involved with military. They founded the Churchill Machine Tool Company, which then established Matrix Churchill, a precision machining company that was given to the Iraqis, which used the company to machine parts for artillery and rockets. Winston Churchill was a Knight of the Order of the Garter, which is really a continuation of the Knights Templar of London, re-established under a new name a few decades after they were disbanded. The Knights Templar were Christian crusaders, were they, that fought to conquer over Jerusalem. They were also bankers and merchants. The name Churchill has the same meaning as Temple Mount. Temple Mount is a religious site in Jerusalem, and where King Solomon built the first temple. I'm not going with that, I'm afraid. King Solomon was considered to be a sorcerer who used demons to build his temple, that's correct. The Knights Templar, or poor fellow soldiers of Christ, and the Temple of Solomon took their name from the ruins of Solomon's temple during the Crusades. Freemasonry is partly based on the Knights Templar, and the Freemasons and other similar groups use sorcery or witchcraft to mind control people to doing their bidding, like building temples. Well, yeah, as I always say, the higher degrees above the Master Mason, they're occult degrees. That's where that goes on. And you go through your lodge door and you're dealing with normal people in the community, and very few of them go above Master Mason, so they're not involved in this occult stuff at all. So that has to be. It has to be presented as fact, because they don't know this stuff, because they're not meant to know this stuff. If they were meant to know this stuff, they'd have been invited to move higher. You see, they'll only invite those that they believe would enjoy doing this kind of stuff, and there's a lot more of them than you might think. Winston Churchill was Secretary of State for the colonies during the British Mandate for Palestine, which is when many Zionists under contract with the British Crown migrated into Israel. Yeah, which was, the kickback for getting America into the First World War, so that the British governments would go, yeah, we won, aren't we? Fantastic. No, you didn't win nothing. You slaughtered off all your men, and Rothschilds took over the country. And they'd already had stock market and royal family in bag for 100 years. But pretty much done by the time the British government of the day, under instruction from the War Cabinet, none of which were elected by anybody, and part of the Cecil Rhodes Round Table secret Committee of 300 offshoot. So yeah, it's same old faces, isn't it, really? So Churchill was Secretary of State for the colonies during the British Mandate for Palestine, which is when many Zionists under contract with the British Crown migrated into Israel, and then were shoved out by Hitler, because most of the Jews in Europe said, no, this is where we live, thank you very much. A bit like they did in Yemen not so long ago. This was supported by the Balfour Declaration issued by the Knight of the Order of the Garter and former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Arthur Balfour, who was a political associate of Lord Randolph Churchill, the father of Winston Churchill. The Spencer family have been using Aegis Defence Services mercenaries in Syria. Aegis was founded by the British knight Tim Spicer during the war in Iraq. Videos linked with Aegis Defence Services were released that showed mercenaries shooting at civilians. The name Spencer refers to dispensing or distributing. The Spencer family gave over their machining company to the Iraqi government to make weapons which were likely used to kill Americans and British during the wars in Iraq. Well, it was actually to fight, to bring Iran under control. That's what all that were about, really. They also helped to give out land that wasn't theirs to Zionists, because the Spencer family are Christian Zionists. The coat of arms the Spencer family recently used has the Habsburg double-headed eagle holding the red dragons, implying the House of Habsburg have some control over the British crown, which they do. The House of Stuart are allied with the House of Wittelsbach, which is somewhat under the authority of the House of Habsburg. Well, the Habsburgs were the sort of like the last Christian kingdom monarchs, weren't they? I'm not bigging them up in any way, shape, or form. But they were pretty much smashed to pieces. What situation is today, I don't know. But of course, we know the black nobility, the Venetians. That's where they come from, the Venetian party of the North, or the new Venetian party of the North, as they are today. The House of Windsor are also serving high-level German nobility, like the House of Hohenlohe, which are relatives of the Windsors and overall subject to the House of Habsburg. The House of Habsburg served the Pallavicini and Lucchesi Palli families of Italy. Well, we've discussed Pallavicini a lot. They were funding the Stanleys, the Stanleys is the one I'm trying to find here, because it takes us perfectly to it, because we did discuss what I'd found. Pallavicini were funding the Stanleys in order to get the Tudors on the throne. Yeah, which is what that were all about. And then you've got Elizabeth, who was actually still a constitutional monarch, and the actual supremacy was her, her move to ensure that held sway, So she was probably the last one, and so it doesn't matter who her father was, it doesn't matter who her mother was. Her herself, as a woman, was a good one. She operated for England, not anything else. You know what she set up with the East Indies, etc. They were trading blocks. They weren't colonizing. That didn't start to happen until the Hanoverians took it over, or the Prussians. But the Pallavicini were the financiers, and also directly to Elizabeth, in order for her to build the navy, to rob the Spanish galleons raiding South America. So Pallavicini are an exceptionally important family, as we've discussed. And he's saying here that the Pallavicini, the Habsburgs served the Pallavicini and the Lucchesi Palli families of Italy. Pallavicini, of course, being tied in with the Holy See, which I would then suggest Lucchesi Palli is also the same. So Pallavicini, we know the Derbys, because the Stanleys were the Derbys, the Earls of Derby. I'm interested up here in the Trophy Ball when the last Earl of Derby died. Duke of Westminster's lot nicked it, turned it into a bird shoot, and now this Trophy Ball is just nothing like it ever is, ever was. But they were also called the House Strange with the Stanleys, and they run the Oddfellows, which is very interesting. So let me find that, because that's exactly where that moves to. And I can't find it for some reason. I don't know why. I'm looking at it today, so it kind of gone, unless I've deleted it or something. Name of Rome. Yeah, where is it? I don't know what I've done with it. Let me just check the trash. I haven't binned it or something like that. No. So I must have done something with it, because I've been looking. I watched to look at it today. No, it's not there. Let me have a look. Maybe I'm not looking at the title correctly, but Hamilton Douglas. There we go. I found it. Right. Now, this is exceptionally interesting, and it might just bring to bit of subject matter back to the fore, which, I mean, I don't get any way to do this, but, you know, synchronicity, you have to move with it. But of course, you guys can make your own mind up. I'll just have a look at where you guys are at. Breton Law. Well, I don't know. I've never heard of that, actually. Breton Law. But you said that you misspelled it, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. Yeah, well, that's what you said originally. Right, anyway. Breton law was the legal system that existed in Ireland before the coming of the Normans. Okay, all right. Yeah, but what I'm trying to get across is the original system that people call Christianity was Gaelic. It was the Britons, the Irish, you know, well, which incorporates Scotland, and Wales didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Wales and such existed as the invaders from all over Europe and Scandinavia came in and pushed the Britons ever westward. Obviously westward because they were closer to Ireland. So Breton law. So the laws that I was speaking of, we're talking about the Gaelic laws, the original stuff, you know, and that would have been the system that pretty much run a global empire. Or maybe it wasn't an empire as such in the way that we see empire like Rome, but it was just a huge system that influenced a big chunk of the known world. Then, I mean, how far that goes, I don't know, but you know, we probably assume it just stopped at Europe. But of course, you know, the evidence is everywhere that these Phoenician empires, they were sailing and traversing the entire world. They were going to America. The Egyptians were in America because there's been cocaine found in the mummies. So the Egyptians and the Phoenicians could very well be one and the same, because the Egyptians themselves had a navy, and obviously if they weren't going over to the Americas themselves, then they were certainly trading with the Phoenicians, who were. Flat Earth were pushed out across Europe to stop the Roman Empire that were burgeoning, and the Assyrian Empire, as it was left, from trying to expand off the land and onto the sea, because they pretty much had that, and basically gave the idea that if you don't really know what you're doing, you're going to fall off the edge of the earth. And obviously it worked. So it all starts to make sense when you look at it in this way and don't fall into the... I mean, look, the story of creation is about the creator of the earth. So, and that's the first chapter in Genesis. The rest, as I've said, is this Lord's coming to it. So that's priesthood stuff. You know, merging existing older data to form its own construct. How Sir Judah created the Bible that everybody knows. You know, we've discussed that as well. So you're looking at just the first verse, which is based on the original story. Then we're talking about the creator of the earth, not some sky god that runs the world. Do you know what I'm saying? And like I've always said, when I was studying Atlantis way back, it was pretty obvious to me that there were no aliens coming down after these cataclysms. It was the elite survivors from the previous time coming back with the technology. And of course, if they're coming back maybe a few generations on from the catastrophe, then the people that are growing up at that time are going to see them as gods. No, this was just, and it's all here, based here. So, you know, this alien script is about blaming something outside here and taking you off the hook and moving you further away from what it is you're here for on a personal, individual level to learn. You know, the alien script, it's all somebody else's fault. It's got nothing to do with you. You're innocent. No, bullshit. That's always been my take on studying the ancient things. And this guy that I've been watching this week, that somebody sent me last week, this guy's really knows his stuff. There are points of it, obviously, I'm not agreeing on. It doesn't mean to say he's incorrect, but for instance, he seems to hold Abraham in our regard, whereas for me, the guy were a murderer. To me, That's what he would have been. So what God were asking him to go murder, you know, I'd say it with the Lord, not the one that created the earth and give rules for earth, as it were. Any links to the adrenochrome? Why would we have any links to it? It's all over internet, lad. AGM evening. That video. Who are you? Why can't you just put your name up like normal people? Why do you have to hide? What are you hiding, pal? Apparently, if you scare a child, you can produce it. Yeah. So adrenochrome, from what I've studied, when you're in absolute fear and the adrenaline is pumping, adrenochrome is put into your blood, and again, it's to heighten up your power to fight or flight, and that's what they have to get. They've got to get it to that stage so that the blood's full of it before they do the deed. So the old kind of sacrifices, like the Vikings used to do this. No, not Vikings, the Norsemen. We can't keep calling them for adventurers because they were Norsemen. The term Viking doesn't describe a people; it describes going on an adventure. So the Norse they did it, but it was all consensual. These people would decide to do it. A bit like if you go with the story of Jesus, he willingly went to that. So the mockery of it is to, you know, they're doing it, they're pinching people and doing it against their will, and then terrifying them to get this shit going in, which, you know, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. You know, you get into occult stuff and they're talking about Soma and all this stuff, and people think it means same as what you're getting if you study the Vedic kind of stuff, whereas it's more of it's talking about the functions of the pineal gland and how it secretes stuff, etc., etc. You know, the inverse of that is let's do it in a physical manner. So they do everything inverse, and then it becomes evil. It's a psyop. Well, it could well be, but if you know anything about these rituals that they carry out, and I'm not talking about because David Icke told you, if you know anything about how these things, they don't do anything just for nothing. Everything they do has a reason. It's got a meaning. And they you know, this is what people don't, which you won't if you don't study that kind of stuff. And, you know, I wouldn't advise people to do it, really. This kind of stuff doesn't make sense, but it could be a psyop. Who knows? Who knows it? But they do the sacrificing of children, and they do have a format that they carry out before they do that. You know, same with the people in the ritual. They're in robes because they're naked. So if you look at it in this way, the unseen that they're calling in needs a feed. It wants a feed. If it's going to give you what it is you want, it's going to give you information, or if it's going to use its own minions in the unseen to carry out something that you've requested, then it's not going to come and play out until it's going to get a feed. And they don't feed on fish and chips because they don't have a gob like we do and a body. So they have another way of feeding their system, and that is energy, pure energy. The two ways in which a human creates the most energy is sexual arousal and fear. So when you're in fear, you're creating masses of energy in your field. Yeah, they want it. So you're combining sexual predatory behavior and terrifying the living daylights out of them. It's a double bubble in it as energy, but then also the adherents in the ritual are all masturbating. So this isn't for children. Let's get this right. I have marked it such. And the aim is to all come to the end bit in synchronicity with the actual performing of the cut. That's the maximum feed in these rituals when you're feeding these entities. So there's reason for everything they do. Now, whether you know, they do eat the parts, it's all ceremonial. It's all ceremonial. You know what I'm saying? And it's been going on forever. So they're only following suit. So So it's sort of, if you want to attract a certain entity, then there's a certain thing you'd have to do, and that's been written forever in the grimoires. So they're not inventing it, these people that do this today. They're following ancient traditions. So feel your body goes into back up with your inside body work, like if you were shot. The fear can slow the blood loss down. Well, I don't know what's going on sometimes, but I mean, I've been in a lot of situations in my life where, you know, some of them are life and death. And it's a strange thing, how you react yourself to these things, because, you know, you can sit there all day and plan and plot how you'll do this and how you'd survive that and blah, blah, blah. But when these things happen, and none of everything you've ever thought of, in most cases, gets carried out. It's a strange thing. So there are energies that, you know, only comes into play when you're in fear. And of course, this is what they know, and this is why they use that thing, that kind of stuff. So adrenochrome, yeah, could be just a big psyop, but people do drink blood, and from all accounts, they get addicted to that as well. Whether it's adrenochrome, I don't know. But this is not coming from David Icke. This is coming from when I studied the grimoires, when I studied the actual demons that you can call, and what rituals, the colours, and all that stuff. So I wanted to know that this was real. You know what I'm saying? But as I've said to you before, I have never ever performed a ritual of any kind like that. But I've studied it all. I'm not saying I know it all, but what I mean, I've studied enough for me to know, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is real. There are far more people that do this than you would ever imagine. And the higher up the game they are, the more successful they are at it. Okay, and that's what you need to keep in mind. So whatever they're doing, it works. So to the data. So as we said, this is the Stanleys, the Earls of Derby, who we know were funded by the Palatine or the Holy See in order to install the Tudors onto the throne of this of Blighty. It says Wizards of Strange. The Barons Strange in the United Kingdom have a high level authority in the British peerage and specialise in advanced and bizarre mind control. Yeah. So Wizards of Strange. Yeah. So they're in the out there arena of things. The family has been involved in politics, military, and many members of this family have been knighted by the crown. They covertly control the Lodge of Oddfellows, of which there are many in Lancashire and Yorkshire. Okay. Strange is odd. The name Strange originates with John Lestrange at the end of the 13th century. The Drummond, Stuart, Murray, Stanley, and Phillips families have all held titles of Barons of Strange. So that's Drummond, Stuart, Murray, Stanley, and Phillips have held the title of Barons of Strange throughout the centuries. The Stanley family, as Barons Strange, ruled the Isle of Man, which uses the triskelion of the three-legged spiral. The triskelion is also used on the flag of Sicily. And this specific version of the three-legged spiral goes back to the ancient Minoan culture. The spiral is used in hypnotism, and the use of three legs adds a strange element to it. Like the three-legged spiral, the Oddfellows use a three-chain link as their most used symbol. The Stanley Barons Strange were often knights of the Order of the Garter under the English crown, like George Stanley, 9th Baron Strange. George Murray, 6th Duke of Atholl, the 11th Baron Strange, was Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. Right, so they're tied into the Scottish Rite Freemasonry as well. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So we could say that this hit from the Holy See entered England via the Scottish lodges. That it makes absolute sense to me. Because of course, as we've discussed, the York Rite Freemasons or English Freemasons had to be Christian. You wouldn't get in the lodge if you were not. But in the Scottish Rite, that's not the case. So that makes a lot of sense to me. That's an interesting piece of data that I'd forgotten he'd written. Freemasonry is about deception, mind control, illusions, and covert warfare. The Baron Strange and their Oddfellows specialize in using the feeling of strangeness to enhance hypnotism and mind control. Well, I think they've certainly, whoever were doing the games in the last couple of years, have created a situation and feeling of strangeness, yeah, to enhance the hypnotism, as he says. They use strange and satanic sexual ritual abuse. This group is ruthlessly wicked. Now, if you're fans of that Brummy series, what they called Peaky Blinders, the first series for me were brilliant. Because it was showing how Churchill and the systems were using all the damaged guys coming back from the First World War to create this underworld. In America, they used prohibition to do the very same. So it's interesting. I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind. The Barons of Strange. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, there were a guy in there. He looked like he was Irish, weren't he? And he ended up getting leader of Peaky Blinders a good kicking where they pretty much smashed his head using soldiers that were working out in India. I forgot what he was, but he was an odd fella. So, you know, important. We talk about Jesuits being pretty important. These guys are the same. Big fellas, you know, the warrior kind of cast that you'd expect. The Barons of Strange ruled over Knockin in England, where the Jodrell Bank Observatory is located, which runs radio telescopes, and the program Merlin, or multi-element radio linked interferometer network, and this includes fixed or grounded satellites. Merlin is the name of a wizard in British Arthurian legend, and the comic book character called Doctor Strange is a sorcerer. They are using satellites and electronics to radiate spells or mind manipulate a frequency into the atmosphere that targets society both individually and collectively. Similar to the covert electronic harassment and mind control, Rodri Phillips, 4th Viscount of St. David's and Baron Strange of Knockin, was convicted of sending menacing communications on the internet and received 12 weeks in prison for it. Rodri Phillips' brother is the musician Roland Augusto, jesting Stanislaw Phillips, or Todd Sharpeville. What? And he is an active member of the Baron Strange involved in Masonic mind control, connected in the music industry. So that's a hell of a long name. Adam Drummond, 17th Baron Strange, is a top member of this clan today. The Stanley family are closely related to the Drummonds and formerly held titles of Baron Strange. This nobility is headed up by Edward Stanley, 19th Earl of Derby. The Baron Strange also... Right. Now, this is interesting. Right. Now, it's interesting because of what I've also experienced and witnessed myself in relation to this chap. So let's go for it. Like I said, I don't go out of my way to do this, but synchronicity is, it needs to be put out. It says the Baron Strange also managed David Icke's operation, and his strange or odd false teachings like reptilian shapeshifters and well, I can't go with holographic reality because, as far as I'm concerned, I think that's exactly where it's at. As well as other false teachings like flat Earth. David Icke is an odd fellow, Freemason, and he's extremely evil. Oh, now, you know, so that's his tip. The Odd Fellows is an international Masonic order with about 10,000 lodges worldwide, and there's divisions like the Independent Order of Odd Fellows, headed up by Grandmaster Larry Ferguson, and the female branch called the Daughters of Rebecca. Right? Now, back to why I thought this is interesting. The Yorkshire Dales, very well known. It's a Jesuit owned, and there's been a Jesuit owned for a very long time. So that's Lancashire's at this side of the Pennines, Yorkshire's at that side, but it does come over at the top end. So the Yorkshire Dales are Jesuit hunting ground. Okay, that's where they are. Now, the reason why they went there originally was chasing up Mother Shipton's prophecies, because they were removing all manuscripts and anything to do with the prophecies, which is why it's so flooded with Jesuits. Now, I met a guy called Justin Walker, who'd asked to meet up, and I met up, and he relayed a few things to me in relation to David. At one point, sort of having doubts about what he was doing. Okay, and this guy Justin Walker invited him up to his pad in the Yorkshire Dales. All right, and there David sort of sorted himself out. Now, Yorkshire Dales, Oddfellas, yeah, makes a bit of sense to me. So just further that. Now, I'm not saying that I agree that David Icke is an Oddfellow and a Freemason, but is that the energy that's got a hold of him? The fact that he went up there at his time of reckoning with himself, it makes sense to me. It could well be the case. But Justin Walker was, definitely a player without a shadow of a doubt. Now, and I think Justin Walker ties in with Brian Gerrish in the UK column as well. So there's quite a big network of them. And obviously, if this is correct, 10,000 lodges worldwide, it's massive. It's absolutely huge, isn't it? So, right. So, yeah. So Prince Edward of Windsor. So that's Eddie, little Eddie. The Duke of Kent. Well, he's not the Duke of Kent. And I haven't checked that out. I forgot to check that out. So manages this peerage and the Oddfellow order. So that's interesting because Miles Matthews has also tied David Icke to the peerage. There's no smoke without fire. It is pretty clear to everybody. As much as you might empathise with David because he comes across as a nice fella, and I think he is a nice fella. Just stuck, in my opinion. But Miles Matthews has him tied to the peerage, so it is possible that they've had a controlling factor over his work from the get-go, I would say. And he's unfortunately not been able to let it go. So, it is odd, isn't it? A lot of what he says. What is good that he put out is pretty much just presenting other people's work to get them in the mix. But the real odd stuff is the reptile stuff, and that kind of nonsense, basically. Because we're just talking about people, aren't we? That's silly people that do this kind of stuff. So that I thought were interesting. So those three pretty much fitted together. Great show, Peaky Blinders. Well, I enjoyed the first series, and I just thought it was a bag of shit after that. It just got stupid. But that first series, where it would really get into grips and showing you what they were up to, how they created an underworld here. Ready for the roaring 20s, fueled by cocaine, and speed and all that kind of like it. Well, you needed an underworld, don't you, if you want to practice and sell that kind of stuff. So it all fits in as a potential possibility, does this stuff? We are trapped in a reality of time. Well, I've said it to you before. Me on my path, there are so many times I felt like I'm in a computer game. Because it's, you pet prizes or dooms. It's like it's just like being in a computer game. You're allocated pass or fail. And as I said, this guy I've been watching this week, this guy's dynamite. I'm telling you. I'm not going to push it yet because I'm not going to suggest him yet because I really need to look at a lot more of his work. But I have looked at a lot of it. And like I said, just a few things that we differ on, but that doesn't mean anything. The knowledge that this guy's connecting, I can't fault. He sees through Sitchin, which I do and did. And I think I've said before, a colleague of mine, one of relations' brothers was operated in that field of translating hieroglyphs and all the old ancient texts. And in passing had said, there's no way Sitchin could translate what he translated and come up with that, because they'd spent years on it and it were untranslatable, some of the stuff that Sitchin was basing his stuff on. So I've never liked Sitchin anyway. I've never been comfortable. This guy is pretty much in agreement. He's definitely studied a lot of the old stuff that I studied in the mystery school. You know, the Vedas, all these things. Like I said, you're talking when you look at the language. These old systems with a different mindset, so a different language in your own mind. You're seeing it differently as the physical thing that most people pick up. I think what this guy's hit on here is right on the button. So both, yes, there he is, Slipknot. You've got that man right. Were you that sent him, mate? Bloody hell, this guy is right on it. But it's quite worrying for him. I wouldn't want to promote him too much because he'd terrify folk. But folk could be absolutely terrified if they to watch some of his stuff. But honestly, this guy I think is really pushing the boundaries, and he's got the keys to so much of this priesthood wizardry that's been set about you in this creation of the Old Testament, and then adding Matthew, Mark, and John as Gospels, when the original mosque, which he also speaks of Marcion as well, which I discussed with you, didn't I, a few live streams ago, being the first, pulling the first canon based on the life of the man Jesus, and he only used Luke, and Luke didn't include any of the Old Testament whatsoever in his formulation of the original canon set around the man Jesus, all of which was removed by Rome when they created their canon. So there's nothing so far that I've looked, and I've probably watched about 50 videos of these guys. Some I've had to watch about 5 times because there's so much data in it. You're computing what he's just said and you're missing something else. So you've got to, there's one in particular I've watched quite a few times, and today especially, just letting it sink, because I wish my old websites were up, because that's where I put all that data on my older websites when I'd come out of mystery school. So I was full of all that, churning it out left, right, and centre because I just wanted to get it out of my system. And I wish they were up, because I forgot what I've written on them, and I could compare so much of it, because you know he's very adamant that forget your aliens and God. Yeah, exactly, as I used to write. They're not. It's just the elites from each disaster coming back and laying it out, and then over time they lose their technology, or potentially they've been on Antarctica all these time. You know, so I don't know. It's interesting, but he's working on the concept, isn't it? But we're talking about him all. Well, yeah, but honestly, if you're faint of heart and you're looking for a beautiful future, don't look at his work. Okay, you've got to be grounded and in reality to be taking this guy's work on. But I'll tell you what, wow, this guy's cracked it. He's shit up, absolutely shit up. Yeah, so I'm impressed. And I've been all week, to be honest. Right. What else are you saying? I'm late again. You're late again. That's how many detentions have you had there? That's about 5 detentions, cause honestly, I have to transfer it to Kane if you carry on. Anyway, so right, let me see what else. So we'll see what else we can. In here. Where the hell has it gone? Now Massimo, I've mentioned Massimo quite a lot, haven't I, as being a really powerful family. So this is what he writes about the Massimo family, because again, you know, this is again an important piece of data for people that are already in the know on this kind of data. So you might be surprised what arena the Massimo family is controlling, but then you might not. So the Tavistock Institute for Mind Control. Nobody here is going to disagree that that's exactly what it's all about, is there? No. It says the Tavistock Institute was financed by the Rockefeller Foundation and is a research program involved in human behavior, social sciences, and psychology. Today, the Tavistock Institute is covertly involved with social networking sites, alternative media, and conspiracy forums. Oh, yes, they are. And I've got kicked off them all in my time. The US Air Force and DARPA run covert programs on the internet using research developed from the Tavistock Institute. Their goal is mass manipulation of society through social networking and psychological torture on those researching conspiracy or on those opposing the criminals running society. So all your shills, all your diverties, all your numpties that are just obfuscating, like, you know, your Venetian guy who's misrepresenting everything, they just, you know, that's where this comes from. This is where they get the scripts. This is where they get the money. This is where they get the power. Their goal is mass manipulation of society through social networking or psychological torture. Oh, yeah, I've done that. Sorry. The word conspiracy theorist is a term these criminals created as a form of neuro-linguistic programming to automatically discredit those who research or investigate criminality. Well, they did that first. They brought that out when they'd shot JFK, and anybody that were looking into it, they used the term conspiracy theorist, and that stuck like glue, and it's been used ever since, a bit like the term anti-Semitic. Yeah, it's quite ridiculous, really, isn't it? So the word conspiracy theorist is a term criminals created as a form of neuro-linguistic programming to automatically discredit those that research and investigate criminality. The Tavistock Clinic is stationed in London and is directly involved with the British government and the House of Windsor. The United States Department of Defence and intelligence agencies are infiltrated by British Crown Knights and Freemasons working for the British Crown. Usually mentioning the word Tavistock on a conspiracy website will get you banned. Well, use the term Chatham House. It's the same thing. Which is the Royal Institute for International Affairs headquarters, which probably runs the Round Table network, from which you've got Club of Rome, United Nations, Bilderberg Group, all these offshoot organizations. So this is the sort of spider's web, the center of the web. The website's Conspiracy Outpost, Godlike Productions, and Lunatic Outpost are entirely Tavistock operations. The moderators, Cinnamon and UK Shep, on Conspiracy Outpost are highly trained Tavistock agents and extremely sadistic. Cinnamon is a psychotic child, murdering Amazon feminist and electronic gang stalker. Okay, yeah, he's angry. Craig Oxley is a high-level member of the Tavistock Institute, which was financed by the Rockefeller Foundation. There is a statue of Prometheus at Rockefeller Plaza. Craig Oxley's site states on its header, "Support the Prometheans." David Rockefeller Jr. and the Rockefeller Foundation are involved in financing Tavistock's agendas. The Russells, Parsons, Carnegie, and Spencer families in the UK are covert managers of the Tavistock Institute. Now, the Russells control the Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah? Charles Taze Russell, according to his wife, were a paedophile and a 33-degree Mason. Yeah, so operating for Tavistock mind control. Yeah. Jehovah's gang, or Yahweh, the evil God, the blood and guts God. Anyway. And the Spencer, so Spencer's as well are part of this, yeah? So that's your Churchills. Diana, the supreme mind job. I mean, like I said, the only evidence missing in the entire charade is evidence that she's dead. Okay, and that, I don't care who you are, that is reality. There is no evidence that she's dead. Andrew Russell, the 15th Duke of Bedford and Marquis of Tavistock, is the top overseer, and he's worth over 500 million. Well, that's not really much money. The Tavistock Group is an international investment firm headquartered in the British Crown's Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Tavistock Group is owned by the Lewis family with Joe Lewis, and they also have a charitable foundation connected with their investment firm. Joe Lewis is worth about 5 billion and was a business associate of George Soros, and they both made billions on Black Wednesday. They use their billions to finance criminal agendas like Tavistock's psychological torture programs or social mind control programs. Charities are often used as a disguise for criminal payoffs. The Tavistock Institute is pure evil and involved with ruthless mind control, and has the entire internet running brain reading software developed by DARPA. Dr. Eliat Aram, Robert Branner, Joel Featherman, Joanna Hill, Julie Newland, Christopher Warhurst, Alice Long, and Cliff Oswick are all council members of the Tavistock Institute and also Law's Criminals. Major alternative media outlets are part of the FBI's COINTELPRO operation or similar agencies, and programs intended to infiltrate political organizations in order to disrupt, subvert, and radicalize them. Some start out legitimate and later become compromised. They operate as fishing nets drawing in opposition. The entire internet is used like a net and managed by criminal hacking groups connected with military intelligence and agencies. So 77 Brigade, is it 8100, 8500, all that nonsense. Anonymous is a COINTELPRO group created by the CIA and NSA, I'd say Q as well. The legitimate opposition that they cannot manipulate are targeted and persecuted. So yeah, they do. If they can't manipulate you with the garbage on the internet, so you're not just passing around pish, you're supporting the men, with money, you're fine. They're not going to give you any grief at all. But if you start acting funny and naughty like me, I mean, I'm a good boy now. I am actually quite a good boy. I've behaved myself for a bit. You know what I'm saying? But they do get excited if you step over the line. InfoWars uses Strat4. These groups are then connected with secret societies which covertly carry out persecution for payment. Secret societies use criminal-style initiations to incorporate its members so that they can blackmail members if they try to turn against them. Secret societies are organised crime groups and include Jesuits, Freemasons, Knights of Columbus, Chabad Lubavitch, fraternities, sororities, and they all work with less organised and unofficial groups like Wiccan cults and New Age cults. Facebook and smart devices use Tavistock brain reading software as part of their social engineering program. Organised religion is also involved, including Christian churches and especially the Church of Latter-day Saints. So that's your Hoodie in Australia. He's a Latter-day Saint geezer. Yeah. Freemasons and Jesuit agents at the Department of Defence work with the British Tavistock Institute and run COINTELPRO-like operations based on psychological programs developed by the Tavistock Institute. The Tavistock Institute works with MI6, headed up by Alex Younger, and MI5, headed up by Andrew Parker. Remember, this were in 2018. Those positions may have changed. These agencies work with the CIA and US Air Force. They are involved with most of the major alternative media outlets like Godlike Productions, Lunatic Outpost, Conspiracy Outpost, David Icke Forum, InfoWars, Reddit, Conspiracy, and Disclose TV. Alternative media channels like these use brain reading software along with disinformation agents that gather intel on people who speak out. They hire commenters to dictate the narrative and gatekeepers to target people who disrupt their programs. Their goal is to understand and control the minds of the opposition. They're also involved in electronic harassment. They develop alternative media programs. Their goal is to understand and control the minds of the opposition. They're also involved in electronic harassment. They develop alternative media programs or themes like QAnon, which are intended to distract, undermine, and misdirect the opposition against corruption, but also to work in sync with the trumpet. Yeah, the trumpet man. It's all pushing him because in the background he's still whizzing around all over the shop, bigging himself up and that. So whether they've got another use for him or not remains to be seen. But I don't think this bad boy Biden's going to be in for much longer. The guy's nearly falling asleep, and when he's not asleep, he's talking bollocks. You've got Vlad the Impaler, he's at it and all. It's not going down very well, is it? Not even in Russia, by all accounts, what he's up to. So it's just showing it by all these sick people. Anonymous were a Jesuit Guy Fawkes masks and call themselves Legion. Rome used legions. The ones involved in these Tavistock operations are ruthless sadists and all-out criminals. Well, you remember that 7/7 bombing? It was such a joke. Right outside Tavistock. Bombs were coming from underneath the buzz, underneath the underground, and yet, Yeah, everybody jumped on. Oh my God, look what these terrorists did. Yeah. Some of Craig Oxley's lies are of his who made up. Some of Craig Oxley's lies are the made-up person he calls Pepe Orsini. Oh, so Oxley, this guy Craig Oxley's behind this idea that the head of it all is a guy called Pepe Orsini. And he claims that the Orsini family are the Maximus clan and does not talk about the Massimo family. And this is because he works with the Spencer family, which are currently working with the Massimo family. Oxley also talks a lot about the Breakspear family and does not talk about the Lancelotti family, which still exists and are intermarried with Massimo family. One of the reasons he talks about the Pallavicini family is because they are rivals of the Massimo family. The Pallavicini family have some influence over the Sforza Cesarini family, which are direct rivals with the Massimo family and have attacked the Massimo's interests in organised crime. So Pallavicini, they're definitely a powerful family. And they could actually be a good eggs, really, the good side of it back in the day, because, if they hadn't financed Elizabeth, they wouldn't have been the England that we know. The England we know, actually, has been, you've let that go. You're all now under this Hanoverian UK. The Prussians are at it, what are they, the Bonaparte clan. What's it called? The Legion of Honor. Honor? Oh, yeah, right. Anyway. Knowing how to read and write and do basic maths should be the only requirements for adults. Public education needs to be removed. It is socialism and highly destructive to society. The manner in which you learn how to read, write, add, subtract, and multiply and divide should be up to you and your family. There are necessities in society. The only other information people need to know are laws, which are also overly misused concept. Well, yeah, because people don't even know what law is. They all think government policy is law because they're in a contract. Yeah, you get out of the contract, then you're on law. The law of the nation, not government policy. So, if you're an immigrant come over here following government policy, you're in breach of Quran. Because that tells you to obey the law. And that's a failure of you to seek knowledge, another commandment of the Quran, you see. This is where you're at, you guys. And then the experience he had the other week, you guys, I'll tell you what both society needs to, white people and Muslims, is that the Muslims are under such a control of this other group. Because last week I work in centre of town on a shop on the Broadway, so of course it's bustling. Anybody that's coming to Accra is going on there. So the Wednesday it was, and I had two lads working with me, and I just looked out and I noticed this. You thought he was a Muslim, chatting to himself. So I gave him a good look, and I thought, I don't know what he's doing. So I watched him for a bit longer, and it was pretty obvious to me we were throwing a curse. To whom and to what, I didn't know. But I just said to my mates, look at that. I said, he's throwing a curse. That's what he's doing. I said, keep your eye on that, and then you get to see something you'll never recognise. So this went on for about 20 minutes. And maybe 5 minutes before he finished, other people had noticed and were looking at him. So he about turned and faced a tree and carried on. Because, of course, you're throwing a curse, you have to finish the entire verbiage. Anyway, he'd gone. That was the end of it. And the day after, wow, okay, I'm working away inside. Also, I can hear this kerfuffle. All hell broke loose in front of the shop. And it was between a young Muslim couple, male and female, I presume they were married, and a white couple, a lot older, male and female. And the Muslim female was going absolute batty, absolutely insane. She were obviously, loose. She was loose. She'd gone. Well, she started hitting people. She were actually belting people full on. Then her husband got involved, and they started beating the hell out of these two people, calling everybody white bastards. And I just thought to myself, that is a direct result of yesterday. So who was that guy throwing that curse? Because that's what I'm seeing. going on, which means that most of the Muslims, you see, they're being controlled by that because they're falling victim to it. And all hell broke loose out of nothing. And if they're playing that game now, the priesthood, and fomenting this kind of nonsense everywhere, then we all need to be aware of where it's coming from and not where you would assume that all Muslims are like that. As Muslims assume all white people like that. Well, Muslims that were born here know quite well that that's not the case. But we've been flooded with a lot of people that don't know anything about this country, only what they've been told. They're not going to see the light in that respect. But that's very important. And I meant to speak of it last week when we spoke about the Sharia tie into the hip-hop scene. But I forgot. So I've put it in there now because this isn't new to me. I've seen this happen a lot, because I'm aware of this stuff, but most of you not. But now you've in your mind, you may see it. You may see it happening. If you do, so if I see it happening again, now that I know what they're doing, this priesthood, and I separate them from Muslims, because this priesthood that are throwing them curses, you can fear. They're among the Muslims, but they're not Muslims. But it's the Muslims that are suffering, along with the natives now. If that's their agenda, if I see that happen again, I'm going to record it and I'm going to break the curse. Okay, and I would suggest that if you ever see this out there in the wide world, you do the same. Because if they're doing what I think they're doing, then they're readying to start to aggravate the peace. Okay? And what's important is you remember both the Muslims and the natives are suffering that. It's being thrust into our mix. That it's not there already. It's being thrust in for activation. So be very aware of that. Well, that's actually it. So that's an extra bit that I was looking at there. So there you go, the Massimo family. Enemies of the Palavicini are very involved in the control of the Tavistock Institute from London. And remember, I have a page up on the site from a document that states very clearly that the Froebel system was pulled over from Germany into Tavistock, tweaked, and the result educated the Brown Church, or the children that would become the Third Reich. Pretty much like what we're seeing here today with our children. They're off the rails. They're insane. They think they're amazing and fantastic. Yep. And the characters that have been formed through these schools programs are very selfish. You must not offend me. I must never be angry. I must never be upset. You can see the kind of mindset they've got when they can scoop it up and give them a gun. So it's exactly what they did in Germany. Now the green shirts, aren't they? Because they're all environment. So they've been inflated with the environment nonsense. Right. So I thought I'd have a look at you lot. Call it a day. Body, good day. You see, the kidnapping of kids as well. One thing you learn when you're studying the occult, that it's very rare they're taking children off the streets. It's just too open to publicity. They breed them within their own cults. That's what they do. And the orphans, the orphanages, the children's homes, social services, they're all filters. And they only put people in there that nobody's going to come make a fuss about. So this idea that kids are being kidnapped by the gazillion, doesn't bear fruit. Now, I'm not talking about what's happening outside of the British Isles, because I don't know. I don't know how bad it is in America, if it's real. But I know in Blighty, if somebody goes missing for longer than 10 minutes, all 10 knows, you know what I'm saying? If a dog goes missing here for 10 minutes, the whole fucking nation's out looking for the dog. Probably more so than they'd look for a child. It's just the way the Brits operate, unfortunately. But yeah, your dog's missing, the whole tribe's out looking for the dog. With food, they'll even take a lead as well so they can grab it. Whereas I'd just shoot the damn thing and get another. I mean, of course, I'm joking. That's just to trigger all the baby boomers. But anyway, Dianet is in the Illuminati card game like all the sides. Yeah, of course you were. Of course you were. I mean, yeah. You've also, and this is an I want to get across to folk, because unless you've experienced this kind of energy on you, you can get to a point where you know you're being controlled. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, like David Icke, it's not like I'm saying he set off with that intent. I don't know. I just see him as totally controlled by it, and he may have had a couple of times in his day to redress it and move out, but I would suggest a failure. Because I think what the way they massage David is that when he's had enough and he's getting on them times, that's when they'll start to feed him a bit of goodies. Building up his son, giving him the opportunity. And that's what I think. That's where they decides it for him. Which, if that's the case, then it's not up to scratch, is it? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, there we go. Or they adopt them. Yeah, yeah. That's what social services is for, isn't it? They take nicking your kids. And because public opinion thinks it's a good idea, because they're not involved in it, they don't have to suffer it, they can watch it on telly and then go to sleep. Wake up for Coronation Street and go to sleep. Wake up for EastEnders and go to sleep. Wake up for the news, shit yourself, and go to sleep. Wake up shitting yourself, watch news, shit yourself more, and then go to sleep. Afternoon now. And then medication. Let's go to the doctors. Oh, look, our prescription's arrived. The drug dealer's arrived, darling, and he's brought it in nice white bags and it says pharmacy. Oh, anyway, we could talk about that all night. It's so crazy. They certainly do adopt them, but fostering as well. Fostering, it's going on there as well. But you've got to remember how you terrify these children. You speak about this and we'll kill your mum and dad. Well, you got flea bags that have been took away from the mother, and maybe dad's not there. And you're hoping to get back to your mother, and they're saying, look, you'll put up with this or we'll kill your mother. You ain't going to say a dick about it, are you? Because if your mother's gone, you're not going anywhere. This is all I mean, I studied this years ago, how these networks work, because it's disgusting. But honestly, they've so wrapped it up. And because you're dealing with children. Little primary school children who need to be told what to do. Oh, that's the majority of the population at the moment. Anyway, let's not start abusing the slaves. Anyway, wake up shitting yourself. Yeah, they do. Well, they do. They wake up shitting it because they had a bad dream. Then they shit themselves again because they watch telly. Then they go to sleep. Then the meds. Maybe do a bit of shopping with a mask on. I am noticing, though, there's not many people with masks on. Just the, uber numpties. Or people who maybe have just lost somebody again to it, and so automatically shitting themselves. Never equates, does it? That it wasn't because the mask wasn't good enough, because they wore the mask throughout the game. They had the shot. But they're suffering these events, and they're still looking for everything other than. It's what did I see today? Something about another reason for failure. It was just so ridiculous how they're embedding that in now as look, all of a sudden, it's been like this forever. Everybody's been getting these conditions. I don't know. It's just absolutely absurd. And I mean, and just when you think people have seen the light, and then they go and do something even more stupid, and it's going like, the spell has been broken. I think it has, but right. Let's look at it this way. 2009, when they did it last time with the flying flu, the people weren't dumb enough. There weren't enough people dumb enough to go for it. So all they did was change all the rules in the background. So from 2009 to 2020, that's 11 years, they got the populations to a much lesser degree of alertness and this time it works. Now, what has it done? Does the juice actually affect your capacity on top of what they had before when it started? So for 9 years they pulled it down to lessen the capacity of the population so that it did work. Okay, you say we've wised up, the spell has been broken. It has for that particular thing. Here, it hasn't in other countries, they still has it. But here it has. But if that, what they've done affects your capacity, then when they do it again, you know, I don't know. They haven't finished, that's a fact. And Gates is running about saying the fact, so. Yeah, monkeypox, I don't know. Who knows what they're going to come out with. But whatever they come out with, it'll be another one, another good one. And yeah, I don't know. We have to wait and see. Wait and see and hope that it has really broke the spell. Well, they did pay him to stay at home, watch telly, and now what a mess everybody's in. It's like, there's just nothing going on anywhere. It's town centres are becoming dead zones. It's just bizarre. But if you think back 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we're certainly in a different place. Are we not? Yeah, because there'll probably be no pay this time. Well, they got you also out at yourselves with your contracts by going for furlough. Whereas if I were in that position at the time, employed, I'd have just said, nah, I'll stick to my contract. You can pay me out if you want, but I'm certainly not giving up my contract and signing another. I'm suing you for breach of contract. I don't care what these dicks say down at Childcare Westminster. I couldn't give a toss what they're on about. I'm in a contract. You'll honour that contract exactly as you have it written. But no, what did everybody do? Oh, yes, thank you very much. Sack yourself, zero contract. It basically, in a contract now, which says, as your employer, I don't need to give you fuck all. Not even the steam off my poo do I need to give you. UBI. Yeah, oh, well, that's it. You sat at home, what are you watching? Telly! Chaffy stuck in the room. In it, the TV. So, well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I've bored you long enough, and I think I'll say till the next time.